When Patrizia Reggiani met Maurizio Gucci at a party in 1970, she saw him as her ticket to a better life. She knew what she wanted and she went out to get it. She wanted to get to that next echelon of society. And she did. Within 2 years, Patrizia and Maurizio were married, entwining her with the prominent house of Gucci and the heir to the Gucci fashion brand. The celebrity power couple relocated from Italy to New York City, where Patrizia quickly joined the ranks of prominent socialite women. But the couple's picture-perfect love story looked more like Romeo and Juliet behind the scenes, noting that it was influenced by Gucci family politics and a disapproving father. Maurizio's father, Rodolfo, was very concerned about Patrizia, the way she would spend money and the way, her view, she wanted to live her life, says Domenico De Sole, former CEO and chairman of Gucci, adding that Rodolfo viewed her as a gold digger. In addition to the external pressures tugging at their marriage from the beginning, the couple's relationship grew strained from the inside, particularly after Maurizio became the majority stakeholder of the family company, pulling his focus away from Patrizia. In 1985, 3 years after the couple moved back to Italy, Maurizio left for a business trip, and never returned, sending a confidant to notify Patrizia that their marriage was over. According to Sherry Loud, who dated Maurizio for 5 years while he was still legally married to Patrizia, Maurizio wasn't solely to blame for the split. Patrizia was unkind, always put him down. Didn't want to do anything that he wanted to do, Loud said. He said he didn't love her anymore. He said he just had enough. Patrizia finalized her divorce from Maurizio in 1994, losing one of her most precious assets, the legal right to use the Gucci surname. Pina Orima says Patrizia was more sad and sorry about losing her name than losing her husband. Publicly bitter toward Maurizio and disheartened by rumors that he would soon remarry, a measure that would cut her alimony payments in half, Patrizia began to plot his murder with the help of Orima, who connected her with a hitman. The 1995 murder of Maurizio Gucci remains one of the most shocking events in Italy's history. For a man whose very name had come to symbolize elegance, Maurizio Gucci's death was sadly déclassé. The 46-year-old third-generation scion of the Italian fashion dynasty had left his Milan apartment just after 8:30 a.m. on March 27, 1995, for the short walk to his office 50 yards away. Stylishly clad in a suit and tie, and, of course, Gucci loafers, he strode past the public gardens and into the building at 20 Via Palestro.
When Maurizio Gucci, third-generation heir to the $1 million brand, is shot dead, investigators have too many suspects.
Guys, on March 27, 1995, Maurizio Gucci was murdered as he climbed the stairs into his office right outside of his Milan apartment. The 46-year-old was gunned down by a seemingly professional killer.
But as he headed up the short flight of stairs, witnesses said, an equally well-dressed middle-aged man fell into step behind him. Armed with a 7.65 mm pistol, the man fired twice at Gucci, hitting him once in the shoulder and once in the lower back. Gucci spun around, collapsed onto the red marble floor and lay there as the gunman shot him once in the face before fleeing. It was clearly a premeditated murder, said Italian Police Major Paolo La Forgia. But who was responsible? The case's twists and turns, and the greed, lust and secrets in Gucci's own family. At the heart of the slaying was a story of a former fashion mogul whose ruthless business tactics made enemies of his relatives but secured him control of an internationally renowned and highly lucrative luxury goods business, until his mounting debts forced him to liquidate his stake for more millions. At the time of his death, Gucci was working to remake himself as a casino magnate in Switzerland. After Maurizio Gucci was gunned down on the red marble floor of his Milanese office building early on March 27, 1995. The question was not just why he had been killed but who, among his enemies, had gone through with committing his murder. Witnesses described the gunman as stylish as the 46-year-old former fashion mogul, but much more deadly, after shooting Gucci in the back and shoulder with a 7.65mm pistol. The hit man fatally shot him in the face. The killer was a professional, says prosecutor Carlo Nocerino, who led the investigation. Maurizio Gucci's real death was even more dramatic. Maurizio Gucci was the grandson of Guccio Gucci, the founder of the luxury Italian fashion house, Gucci. He was born on September 26, 1948, in Florence, as the only child of actors Rodolfo Gucci and Sandra Ravel. In 1983, Maurizio launched a legal war against his uncle, Aldo Gucci, for control over the company after he became the majority stakeholder following his father's death. Aldo accused Maurizio of forging his father's signature to avoid paying inheritance taxes, which he was originally found guilty of but was later acquitted. After he was acquitted, Maurizio sold 47.8% of Gucci to Investcorp, a Bahrain-based investment fund that also owned Tiffany & Co. in 1988. Maurizio was made chairman of Gucci in 1989. However, he sold his remaining stocks for $170 million to Investcorp in 1993 after the company's finances were in the red from his leadership. The sale ended the Gucci family's association with Gucci. Maurizio was murdered on March 27, 1995, after he was shot by a hitman believed to be hired by his ex-wife, Patrizia Reggiani. Maurizio and Patrizia married in 1972 and had 2 daughters, Allegra and Alessandra. They separated in 1985, and 5 years later, Maurizio started dating Paola Franchi, a childhood friend who attended his wedding to Patrizia. After Maurizio and Patrizia finalized their divorce in 1994, he planned to marry Paola on his St. Moritz estate in Switzerland before he was murdered. So what was Maurizio Gucci's cause of death and how did he die? Maurizio was shot and killed by a hired hitman at 8:30 a.m. on March 27, 1995. As he walked up the steps to the building of his private office at Via Palestro 20 in Milan, Italy. The building's doorman Giuseppe Onorato, who was the only eyewitness to the murder. It was a lovely spring morning, very quiet. Mr. Gucci arrived carrying some magazines and said good morning. Then I saw a hand. It was a beautiful, clean hand, and it was pointing a gun, he said. Maurizio was shot 3 times in the back and shoulder as he went up the steps. He was shot a 4th and final time in the head before he collapsed. The shooter then noticed Onorato and shot him twice in the arm. I thought it was a joke. Then the shooter saw me. He lifted the gun again and fired 2 more times. What a shame, I thought. This is how I die, he said. Onorato made it to the foyer of the building with Maurizio's body, where he sat in a pool of blood until the Carabinieri, the law enforcement in Italy, arrived. By the time the police arrived, the shooter had disappeared into Milan's Monday morning rush hour. Although the shooter never came back, Onorato feared that he would. I was a poor man, so I had to go back to work at Via Palestro 20 when I recovered. I had a panic attack every time an unfriendly-looking stranger approached, he said. Onorato also explained that he still has pain in his left arm from the shooting. What was Maurizio Gucci's cause of death? According to a Washington Post report at the time, Maurizio was killed by the 4th and final shot in his temple, which resulted in head trauma, and was declared dead at the scene. Police believed Maurizio's murder was not done by a professional at his time because the first 3 shots weren't fatal. Onorato, for his part, was taken to a hospital in Milan after he was shot in the arm and leg, where he was reported in stable condition. Who killed Maurizio Gucci? Almost 2 years after his death, Maurizio's ex-wife, Patrizia Reggiani, was arrested and accused of hiring the hitman who murdered Maurizio. According to prosecutors, Patrizia, who was nicknamed the Black Widow in the media, had a motive to kill her husband due to the believed jealousy and resentment she had toward him at the time. The prosecutors argued that Patrizia wanted control over the Gucci estate and to prevent Maurizio from marrying his partner, Paola Franchi, because the marriage would have cut Patrizia's alimony in half to $860,000 a year. The hitman who killed Maurizio was Benedetto Serrallo, a pizzeria owner in debt, who had been hired by Patrizia through her psychic and close friend, Giuseppina Pina Orima. Who is Benedetto Serrallo? Benedetto Serrallo was a pizzeria owner, who shockingly turned to contract killing after struggling with debts. Serrallo's pizzeria was reportedly struggling, which, combined with his supposed love of gambling, had left the Italian desperate for a cash injection, enough to turn to contract killing. In March 1995, Serrallo shot Maurizio Gucci dead in the marble foyer of his office in central Milan. In 1997, Patrizia was found guilty of the murder and sentenced to 29 years in prison. Although she asked for the conviction to be overturned, claiming that a brain tumor had affected her judgment. The appeals court denied the request in 2000 but reduced Patrizia's sentence to 26 years. After Patrizia's conviction in 1997, the courts also ordered her to pay Onorato compensation of £142,000 for damages. Onorato told The Guardian in 2016, however, that he has not received any of it. Patrizia, for her part, has declared herself nullatenente, the Italian word for bankrupt that translates to a person who has nothing. Patrizia's daughters, Allegra Gucci and Alessandra Gucci, on the other hand, have inherited most of Maurizio's estate, including millions of euros, a yacht and properties in New York City, St. Moritz and Milan. "I'm not bitter," Onorato said. "But I do wonder, if a rich person had been wounded in that doorway instead of me, whether they'd have been treated with more respect." Meanwhile, 3 years later, Benedetto Serrallo was handed a life sentence for his part in the plot. Right now Patrizia was out in prison. She was released from prison on good behavior in October 2016 after serving 18 years. She currently lives in Milan. Thank you for watching. For more true solved crime stories around the globe, kindly hit like, subscribe and share true solved crime stories. Let's all be alert and watchful around us, because we don't know what's in the hearts and minds of every person around us.